There are stories that change your mind and stories that change your breath. This one may change how you walk through the world. Tonight on The Modern Mystic, we enter the quiet brilliance of Hilma af Klint's dream art and the divine, not as a figure in history, but as a mirror to something sacred inside you. If you've ever longed for peace, for clarity, for purpose, their story may become your own. Have you ever felt the world moving too quickly, where every sound outside feels a step ahead of your body? Maybe there was a time when you sat alone, a little too aware of your hands, your thoughts, wishing you could stretch beyond what's expected. That's exactly what Hilma af Klint's dream art and the divine once felt too. Let's let the day soften, let the sounds in your room fade, one by one, until nothing is left but your breath, this story, and the quiet hope that maybe, just maybe, there's more to you than the world sees. Hilma's life is an invitation to remember not just what we do, but who we are when no one is watching. Tonight, as you sink into your pillow and let yourself drift down where the waking world grows thin, I'll be right here, gentle as moonlight, holding the thread of a story that won't slip away while you rest. This is not a story about a famous artist or a strange mystic locked away in the past. It's about longing, yours, mine, Hilma's, the rising ache for meaning, for connection, for that moment when something inside you whispers, yes, this is real. There's nothing you need to do, no lessons to master, not tonight. Instead, we'll walk softly into Hilma's dream, the life she lived between color and silence, between ordinary mornings and the pulse of the unseen. As you listen, let your own story gently unravel alongside hers. Picture her not in museums, not in the sharp light of history. Picture her, perhaps, sitting by a window, palms clasped, listening to the hush around her heart. If you've ever felt alone in a room and quietly wished for more, more beauty, more stillness, more belonging, know this, so did she. Tonight, I want you to remember that every breath you take is proof of your own dream. You, just as you are, belong here, beside the flicker of Hilma's memory, in the gentle hush that comes before sleep. What you're feeling isn't strange. It's the echo of something universal, a spirit alive in someone who longed, just like you, to find the divine inside her ordinary days. If your mind paces, let it. If your heart aches, let it. You don't have to chase or change anything right now. Just listen. Let the rhythms of Hilma's art, her hope, her tension, her stillness, meet you in the dark. Beneath all stories is silence. In that silence, your home. So drift here with me. Let this be your invitation to breathe softer, to remember yourself, to step quietly into the art and the divine. The night is long, but you are not alone. You are the dreamer and the dream. Let's begin. There are stories that change your mind and stories that change your breath. This one may change how you walk through the world. Tonight on The Modern Mystic, we enter the quiet brilliance of Hilma af Klint's dream art and the divine, not as a figure in history, but as a mirror to something sacred inside you. If you've ever longed for peace, for clarity, for purpose, their story may become your own. If you've ever walked beneath a gray sky and wondered about the colors just beyond the clouds, if you've ever stared at your own hands, knowing that something unseen moved through them, waiting to be expressed, if you've ever wanted to trust what you feel over what you're told her this night is for you, have you ever felt like an invisible current was running beneath the surface of your life, leading you somewhere you can't quite name? Maybe there was a time when you felt out of place, when your ideas seemed too strange, or your heart beat to a rhythm no one else could hear. That's exactly what Hilma af Klint's dream art and the divine once felt too. Not a painter of landscapes, but a dreamer of worlds inside and between things. Her life was a canvas stretched between the ordinary and the infinite. Close your eyes, let your breath slow. Feel the subtle pulse of your own desire for meaning as I guide you through her night and her morning. Let's trace this journey together, not as fact, but as invitation, not as a lesson, but as permission to see yourself quietly, wholly, in the life of someone who listened to the divine in silence and painted what she heard. The village was quiet enough to mistake silence for emptiness. Hilma grew up learning that silence is where the world begins. Before words, before answers, before anyone told you how things should be, there's only breath and the vague, soft ache of curiosity. She would gaze out the window, eyes moving across the fields that faded into forests. Sometimes she'd wonder if the world was a painting hung upside down, colors and shapes that didn't quite make sense, at least not to anyone else. Even as a child, she noticed how a small stone in the palm could feel like a secret meant just for her. At home, there was a gentle kind of sorrow. Her father moved around the house like someone looking for the right place to set down invisible burdens, and her mother's hugs were tight and quiet, like she was trying to hold something together that she couldn't quite name. Hilma felt the weight of unspoken things as if ghosts drifted by on every breeze. She learned to listen where others looked, to feel where others spoke. There was a sense that behind every moment of pain or joy, something more was humming, something she would give her whole life to hear. School offered the safety of routine, but also the loneliness of difference. Other children spoke quickly about things, about people. Hilma listened for the music beneath their words. Sometimes it made her feel old, like she understood things she shouldn't, or like she missed out on simple happiness because she was always watching shadows flicker against the light. But in these early years, she discovered art. Not the kind handed out in lessons, but the kind that erupts without permission, swirling, pressing colors on a page because she had to, because it was the only way her spirit could breathe. The smell of chalk and oil paints became her comfort. Outside, the world was muted, a winter that seemed to last half the year. Inside, she imagined secret gardens blooming in the heart of every snowbank. Have you ever closed your eyes and seen something truer than what you see with them open? This, for Hilma, was the underground stream of her longing. That year, heartbreak swept across the house. Someone left, or someone was lost. Memories blurred by time. It wasn't tragedy, not really, just the ordinary ache of human lives. But to Hilma, every change tasted sharper. She walked the halls and spoke to the silence, certain that each pause held a word meant just for her. Evenings, she would sit with a notebook, not to write but to listen. Words came in soft waves: purpose, faith, future. She knew, even then, her life wouldn't be about following obvious signs, but uncovering quiet invitations. Invitations that would soon set her soul on fire. There are stories that change your mind, and stories that change your breath. This one may change how you walk through the world. Tonight on The Modern Mystic, we enter the quiet brilliance of Hilma af Klint's dream art and the divine, not as a figure in history, but as a mirror to something sacred inside you. If you've ever longed for peace, for clarity, for purpose, their story may become your own. Have you ever felt the pull of something invisible? Maybe there was a time when the world pressed close in silence, and in that hush, a question stirred. Why am I here? For some, the question haunts, for others, it ignites. That's exactly what Hilma af Klint's dream art and the divine once felt too. Tonight, here in the gentle night, let's let that question rest between us, not as something to solve, but as a slow-moving tide. You don't have to figure it out. You can just listen, breathing in, drifting deeper. The world will wait. Together, we'll trace the quiet path of a woman whose life ran deeper than words, through shadows, color, and a faith in the invisible. Maybe you're carrying stress tonight. Maybe all you have is longing. Maybe somewhere, even beneath tired thoughts, there's a spark waiting for the dark. Hilma's story is here to keep you company, where your heart meets your breath, where stories meet dreams. So settle in. No need to hold on. This is for you, the way you are right now. She began, not in the spotlight of history, but in the gentle circle of her own breath. The world in Sweden in the late 19th century was weighed down in tradition, in what could be seen and measured. Hilma's first memory might have been of light, filtered through cold glass, sketching patterns on a floor. She was a child who listened more than she spoke, who saw the pattern in things before anyone else seemed to notice. Roots reaching down in the forest, ripples spreading in the lake. She learned to watch, listen, become a part of her own stillness. In those silent early days, there was comfort in order, yet something deeper, some small ache, pressed behind her quiet. A feeling that there was more to the world than the surface. You know that feeling, the one that flickers in the gaps between thoughts. Maybe you felt it as a kid, tracing stars with your finger against the window at night. Maybe you buried it when the world grew brighter, more crowded, more noisy. Hilma carried that gentle ache with her always, like a secret pulse in her chest. Her family, loving but practical, didn't quite see the world as she did. Her father, an engineer, believed in measuring what you could hold. Her mother ran the house, her hands sure and capable, her feet planted in the day-to-day. Hilma, though, moved just a little to the left of things, seeing what was underneath, feeling what was still coming. She was drawn to shapes, to colors, to the way a line could hum with possibility. Sometimes she'd stop mid-step, stilled by the shadow of a leaf or the gleam of rain on stone. Life, for her, was more felt than named. School was a place of rules, and Hilma followed them from the outside. She did well, answered questions quietly, kept her notebooks neat. But at recess, she'd watch the light on the wall, lost in the movement of dust and daydream. Her teachers said she was bright, obedient. They couldn't see the tide swelling inside her, the vast world she kept tucked behind calm eyes. She wondered sometimes if anyone else felt it. This longing for what couldn't be seen, only sensed. This pull toward something luminous just out of reach. So she waited. She watched. She felt herself growing into the silence, learning its rhythms, wondering what would happen if she ever let that ache become something real. It started quiet, the first spark, as it often does. Hilma had always loved to draw, but this was something different. A calm afternoon. Light through the window, the hush of a room with no one watching. She was sketching a flower, and then, without warning, her hand began to move on its own. Shapes appeared, swirling, unfamiliar. She felt, almost guided. Her thoughts paused. Something new came through. When she looked down, the ordinary flower was gone. In its place, spirals, forms, mysterious curves. She couldn't explain it. She just knew she was not alone in the act. Maybe you felt that too, that brief moment at the edge of sleep, or in the grip of creation, when something larger moves through you. Call it inspiration. Call it a whisper from elsewhere. For Hilma, it became the beginning, the start of a lifelong listening. As she got older, the sensation deepened. Alongside her artist friends, she'd hold seances, gentle, almost playful gatherings. They'd join hands, close their eyes, and see what voices called. Some would laugh, some would doubt, but for Hilma it felt real. Words arrived, sketches appeared, all from a place outside her daily knowing. It was more than make-believe. It was a conversation with the unseen. She wondered what it meant, if it was madness or magic or simply a deeper skill everyone had if they dared to feel. The spark grew persistent, gentle, but insistent. In the quiet, when the world went soft, shapes and colors would shimmer behind Hilma's eyelids. She learned not to force them. If you've ever waited for a thought to arrive, or let music guide your hands or feet, you know this. Trust the current, don't push the river. That was how her art began to change. Not everyone understood, but Hilma knew there was something being asked of her, a trust in the invisible, an agreement to stay open. Bit by bit she followed, not chasing, just attending breath by breath. The struggle came less with thunder and more with fog, slow, dense, sometimes heavy. Hilma wanted to share, but the world wasn't made for artists like her. Sweden was conservative, practical. Women were meant to observe, not to speak in colors no one had names for. She studied at art school, one of the few women allowed. Already people saw her as unusual, a woman with thoughts beyond the fashionable. Her early paintings were admired, landscapes and portraits, steady hands honoring the world as it looked. But that wasn't enough. The real work burned in secret, large canvases alive with swirls, with hidden language, with shapes she claimed were given, not invented. Isolation crept in. Friends admired her skill, but wondered about the strange turn in her art. Why the spirals? Why the colors? Teachers told her to follow form, tradition. But Hilma's silence grew fuller. She learned to nod, to thank people quietly, to hide the true canvas underneath the one on display. Have you ever had to keep something sacred hidden, a part of you only safe in secret? Hilma's struggle was to honor her own vision, even when others couldn't see it. Night after night, she worked in her studio, big canvases stacked in corners, doors locked. She felt guided, still not sure if it was the dead or angels or a current of life no name would hold. Some nights her hands ached. Some mornings she doubted the whole endeavor. But each time she tried to paint normal, a kind of sadness welled up. She couldn't go back. Her longing had shifted. Now it was less for approval, more for truth. Relationships changed. Some friends faded. Her family worried. Critics shrugged. Hilma kept painting, kept listening, kept trusting the rhythm growing inside her. It hurt sometimes, the loneliness, the weight. But in those quiet nights she claimed herself, steadily, one brushstroke at a time. Years rolled by, and then a turning point. One afternoon, not unlike the rest, Hilma was painting. The room was filled with a gentle golden light. Halfway through a canvas, she felt an undeniable presence. Not frightening, not dramatic, just certain. Like the air shifted and became full of promise. The guides she felt nearby, the high masters, as she sometimes called them, seemed to step forward within her. Words arrived in a rush. Paint the temple. Hilma felt panic, then awe. What temple? Where? For whom? The message was clear. Paint not for fame, not for approval, but for a vision that would unfold long after her own lifetime. It almost broke her heart to realize her work wasn't meant for now, but for a future she'd never see. The decision gnawed at her. Could she give her life to something invisible, for people who might never thank her? Yet as the sun shifted, the painting before her pulsed with color. Hilma exhaled and accepted. She'd paint for the unknown, for the ones who might need what she'd been given long after her own hands were gone. Something softened inside her. Fear turned to purpose, longing became devotion. She began a series of enormous works, bold and bright, unapologetically strange. Layer on layer, she let the temple speak through her. She had turned from seeking approval to honoring the call inside, no matter where or when it led. From that moment, Hilma's life took on its own rhythm. Her days were woven with color, silence, and sacred purpose. She woke with the sun, moving gently, letting the morning light fill her studio. Her movements were careful but unhurried, mixing pigments, preparing canvas, opening the windows so the air could breathe beside her. Friends still came and went. Some tried to persuade her back to normal painting, others gossiped or teased. Hilma listened, but no longer bent to please. She answered the world with presence, not defense. Her art became an act of walking her truth, step by patient step, even in solitude. She wrote journals, scribbling notes from dreams, sketching visions that arrived at dawn. She ate simply, kept her home ordered and spare. Every choice was a quiet confirmation of her alignment. Some days uncertainty crept in. Other days she felt brave, almost buoyant. The rhythm of her days was its own form of devotion. Even basic chores, sweeping, making tea, mending clothes, became sacred, stitched with intention. It wasn't about being grand or famous. Hilma was moved by the unseen music of her own alignment. Breath, brushstroke, presence. That was her temple. Sometimes she'd walk alone by the water, letting the wind rearrange her thoughts. She stopped needing explanations. When doubt came calling, she'd return to the studio and let her hands move. The art always knew. She learned to trust it, even when nothing else made sense. Over time, something else emerged, a kind of mastery, but softer than expertise. Hilma became attuned to rhythms that others missed. She sensed the subtle pulse beneath the visible world, the way one day echoed another, the way colors sang together when no one watched. Her greatest gift wasn't just in vision, but in patience. She knew how to wait, how to listen for what wanted to be made, not what wanted to please. She'd sit for hours, canvas before her, hands quiet until the timing felt right. Then, with a grace both casual and sure, she'd start. It was a mastery of surrender, of letting the deeper current lead. She trusted the process. Layers would be stripped off, entire images painted over. Sometimes what arrived was beautiful, sometimes awkward. It didn't matter. Her genius was in her steadiness. She didn't chase revelation. She showed up breath by breath every day. That was her practice, consistent, spacious, humble. Sometimes mastery is simply the willingness to stay present. Hilma's real art was in how she lived, not just how she painted. There were laws Hilma lived by, though she never named them. She moved as if guided by a secret map, an inner choreography. Go where the energy is clear. Trust the pause. Let each day have its own completion. She paid attention to the unseen, signs in the sky, moods in the room, the way her own heart changed weather throughout the day. Nothing was random to her. Patterns lived everywhere, like subtle music. If fatigue swept in, she rested. If inspiration flared, she trusted it, even if it meant abandoning plans. She protected her space. The studio was sacred, her routines gentle boundaries. People might have thought her eccentric or rigid, but to Hilma this rhythm was freedom. She knew that life moves in cycles. She honored endings, welcomed beginnings, stayed soft at the edges. The hidden laws weren't rules, just a deeper attunement to what wanted to live through her each day. If you could ask Hilma's soul anything, maybe you'd whisper, "What would you tell us now?" She would be quiet for a moment. Then you might sense her smiling, gentle and sure. Let the unseen move you. Trust the pauses. Sometimes the best things arrive in silence. She might say, "Don't be afraid of your own strangeness. What's different about you is the beginning of your gift." Another whisper, "It's enough to show up. You don't have to know how it all fits together. Bring your presence and let the canvas unfold. Perhaps most softly, care for your longing. It will guide you home." each whisper like a warm light under your ribs, not instruction, just invitation to breathe a little slower, to let the rhythm of your own life feel enough, to let art, whatever you make of it, be a steady companion on the road ahead. The night is deep now. There's nothing you need to do, nothing to figure out. Just the hush of breath, the weight of the blankets, the gentle current of this story still moving beneath your thoughts. Somewhere, Hilma's hands are quiet. Somewhere your longing is safe. Let the scene be simple. A studio at daybreak. Brushes washed, work resting, light moving across a painted floor. If you listen, you can almost hear it. The slow beat of possibility, the steady hush of colors sleeping. Breathing in, you whisper, I am guided. Breathing out, I am enough. In, I am guided. Out, I am enough. Again, I am guided. I am enough. This is your path too. This is your night too. Rest here. Let the story fade. Let the presence remain. You are not alone in the dark. You are guided. You are enough. Sleep well, dream bright, and carry a little of Hilma's living rhythm with you wherever you wander next. There are stories that change your mind and stories that change your breath. This one may change how you walk through the world. Tonight on The Modern Mystic, we enter the quiet brilliance of Hilma af Klint's dream art and the divine, not as a figure in history, but as a mirror to something sacred inside you. If you've ever longed for peace, for clarity, for purpose, their story may become your own. Sometimes we listen not out of curiosity, but because something inside us is ready. Sometimes it's late at night, your mind's still but restless, and you just want to remember how to feel steady in this world. Have you ever felt like there was more to life, if only you could touch it for a moment? Like the edges of the day held their own kind of message, one you almost hear. If only you get quiet enough, maybe there was a time, long ago, when you pressed a crayon to paper, or just stood in front of something beautiful and wondered. What else is possible here? That's exactly what Hilma af Klint's dream art and the divine once felt too, not in the loud world, but in the hush of her own heart. This night, you don't need to know anything. You don't need to be a painter, a mystic, or a seeker. You just need to breathe, to listen, to let her story find the spaces inside you that still hunger for belonging, for stillness, for meaning deeper than words. Maybe tonight, as this story drifts in with you, you let your breath slow down. Maybe you remember that you're allowed to wonder. Maybe you feel a pulse of hope, that every ordinary life hides a secret whisper, and some people answer it in wild, gentle ways. Hilma's life was not meant for museum walls or the noise of critics. Her dream was meant for people just like you, awake in the night, hoping for proof that their longing means something, that the search itself is holy. So settle in, get cozy, let the world get soft around you. Close your eyes or leave them open, you're exactly where you belong. This is not just the story of an artist. It's permission to remember the softness you were born with and the strength to follow what you hear, even if no one else believes it matters. Tonight, you and Hilma, your hearts beat to the same silent pattern. Let's begin. Hilma af Klint, the woman whose dreams whispered color and light into new existence, whose journey may change how we see the invisible and how we name our own wonders. There are stories that change your mind and stories that change your breath. This one may change how you walk through the world. Tonight on The Modern Mystic, we enter the quiet brilliance of Hilma af Klint's dream art and the divine, not as a figure in history, but as a mirror to something sacred inside you. If you've ever longed for peace, for clarity, for purpose, their story may become your own. Maybe you're listening tonight because something in you seeks gentleness. Or maybe you just want to remember that you're not alone in this search for meaning. Have you ever felt the world's noise pressing in, but underneath there's still that quiet pulse, a sense that there's more you were meant to feel? Maybe there was a time when you looked at color or light or the space between your thoughts, and you wondered if there was something holy in that moment, something alive inside you, but almost invisible. That's exactly what Hilma af Klint's dream art and the divine once felt too. And before we get carried away by her story, let's take a minute together to slow down. Every breath you take now is like a gentle tide in the dark, moving in and out, softening your mind so you can receive whatever you need most. Hilma was not chasing fame or even belonging. She was chasing truth not in loud ways, but in color, in presence, in the most invisible rhythm that most of the world ignored. Her story isn't just for artists or mystics or seekers. Her story is for anyone who ever woke up at midnight and wondered if the universe was whispering just for them. As you're settling in, know that this moment is ours. You, me, and the subtle heartbeat of Hilma's life. It doesn't matter if you know her name or if you've ever felt mystical a day in your life. Tonight, it's just about being in the presence of someone who walked the long, quiet road toward her light and left signposts for the rest of us, in paint, in silence, in the deep architecture of her hope. You're not required to believe anything or to stay awake or to even remember every detail. All that matters is you stay open, breathe a little deeper, and let Hilma's dream stir something gentle in you. This story is sacred because it honors how real longing is, how real beauty is, even when no one is watching. This could be a new kind of remembering for you, not just a story about the past, but a living, pulsing invitation to return to yourself again and again. So as the night stretches out before us, let's step together into the soft, unseen world Hilma walked. Let's notice the echoes between her longing and yours. And maybe by the time morning comes, this journey will have changed you too. The invitation is simple: stay as you are. You're not alone. The sacred waits right where you are. Hilma's dream is about to begin. There are stories that change your mind and stories that change your breath. This one may change how you walk through the world. Tonight on The Modern Mystic, we enter the quiet brilliance of Hilma af Klint's dream art and the divine, not as a figure in history, but as a mirror to something sacred inside you. If you've ever longed for peace, for clarity, for purpose, their story may become your own. Have you ever felt like your life moved at a quieter pace than everyone else's? Maybe there was a time when the world's noise pressed in so close, sleep felt impossible. Maybe some part of you wondered if there was a sacred shape hidden in your breath that everyone else missed. That's exactly what Hilma af Klint's dream art and the divine once felt too. Hilma's story isn't a lesson. It isn't a guide. It's an invitation to listen for what moves you beneath all noise, to drift a little closer to your own deep color and light. You can rest into this journey tonight. You're allowed to let go here. Sometimes the voice in the dark is all you need to remember who you really are. We begin not with a fact or a date, but with a hush, the hush that lives just behind your eyelids, the same hush Hilma would sit with when the brushes and books and bodies fell silent. It's there where every remarkable soul starts, at the soft edge between waking and dream. That's where we meet her. Not just a woman born in Sweden in 1862, not a forgotten painter in anyone's shadow, but a soul restless within the boundaries of the known, awake in the corner, watching shapes move in memory. Growing up under winters so long and still, you would wonder if the sun was just a rumor passed down from one tired dreamer to the next. Hilma was a child made of questions, not answers, hands that itched to hold color, a heart drawn to what was unfinished, unresolved, unseen. Some souls land in their family and find comfort. Others arrive and sense a problem no one will name, a hunger that doesn't fill. Have you ever felt out of step, not just with people, but with the rules of the room? Hilma watched, not from a place of shyness, but from the slow, careful rhythm of someone who knew there was more in the quiet than in the commotion. The world she grew up in was ruled by order and reason, heavy with expectation. Girls were meant to be neat, bright, and above all, explainable. But nothing about Hilma felt safe in a box. She carried questions like secret drawings tucked into her coat, dreams stretched wider than any language she heard around her. Still, she learned early how to be invisible, how to soften her voice, how to fold herself into the corners of a room. Yet she never fully disappeared, because in her longing stayed bright and hungry, a flame even winter could not hide. It's easy now to look back at the story and see highlight reels and headlines. But Hilma's real journey was a wandering, a patience, a creative ache that asked to be named in her own time. She carried the ache through school, through loss, through distance and early grief. She loved her mother fiercely, lost her father too soon, witnessed both the wildness and the stillness that comes when people stop reaching for meaning and just endure. Yet, always, she kept reaching inward. These early years didn't announce any answers. They weren't marked by grand achievement. They were etched in longing, threads of curiosity, flashes of color seen only in dream, stored away gently for something that would matter later, much later. You might think the story truly begins when her art becomes famous, or when she unlocks the visions that set her apart. But for Hilma, everything grew from this hushed, uncertain beginning. In darkness between breaths, in the slow movement of seasons across cold water, she waited for something true. So tonight, as you settle in, as your own breath slows and your body lets go, remember, nothing in you is too slow, too silent, or too strange. Because the dream isn't always obvious at the start. Like Hilma, you're allowed to carry your colors invisibly. You're invited to wait for the shape that fits who you are becoming. All journeys start here, in stillness, in longing. In the breath you just took now, there are stories that change your mind and stories that change your breath. This one may change how you walk through the world. Tonight on the Modern Mystic. We enter the quiet brilliance of Hilma af Klint's dream art and the divine, not as a figure in history, but as a mirror to something sacred inside you. So, get comfortable. Let the weight of your day melt a little. Notice how your chest rises, falls, rises, with every gentle inhale, every natural exhale. If you've ever longed for peace, for clarity, for purpose, their story may become your own. Have you ever felt out of place in your own world? Like you glimpsed something beyond what your eyes could see, but weren't sure if anyone would ever understand. Maybe there was a time when you wanted to speak, paint, sing out what was inside you, but didn't know if the world would listen. Maybe, quietly, you even saw colors in the silence between things, or sensed a certain rhythm waiting beneath the surface of everyday life. That's exactly what Hilma af Klint's dream art and the divine once felt too. Hilma's story isn't a story locked away in museums or buried in some old archive. This is about a different kind of seeing, one that is closer to feeling, light not just on a canvas, but inside your chest. A journey where ordinary days become portals to something more. Let's walk slower, breathe softer, notice the hush behind your thoughts. In this gentle space, imagine Hilma not as a distant painter, but as someone whose heart beat quietly in the night, much like yours beats now. Will drift along the hidden rivers of her life, her longing, her discovery, her struggles, her gifts. And as we go, maybe you'll start to feel that her dream is not separate from your own. You don't need to understand art or history tonight. Just let yourself listen like you're hearing a friend tell you what lives under all the surfaces you touch. Every wall, every brush of wind, every tick of the clock. Soften your eyes, loosen your jaw. If vision is a doorway, let's step through together. This is the story of Hilma af Klint's dream, the quiet revolution she breathed onto the world's blank canvas, a story about trusting what you feel, even if no one else has ever felt it that way. A story about honoring the silent gold inside your own most ordinary moments. Let's begin. Together, there are stories that change your mind and stories that change your breath. This one may change how you walk through the world. Tonight on the Modern Mystic, we enter the quiet brilliance of Hilma af Klint's dream art and the divine, not as a figure in history, but as a mirror to something sacred inside you. If you've ever longed for peace, for clarity, for purpose, their story may become your own. Maybe you've sat in the half dark with your thoughts and wondered if there's something more, an unnamed presence tugging at your insides. Maybe you felt invisible currents moving beneath everyday life. Maybe you close your eyes at night and feel the flicker of wanting to understand why you're really here. That's exactly what Hilma af Klint's dream art and the divine once felt too. Rest into the space we create together now. Let the day settle down on your shoulders. Let everything loosen. Tonight, as you float between waking and dreaming, I'll sit with you in the soft hush and gently open the world of someone who saw beyond sight. Imagine you're walking quietly through an old forest. There's a clearing up ahead, bathed in a mix of golden light and mist. You feel a soft stirring in your chest, not anxiety, but a tenderness, curiosity, a longing to know, not just with your mind, but with your whole body. Tonight, we go together into that clearing. You don't have to do anything. You can let go of needing to achieve or understand, just arrive. Sometimes the most mysterious parts of ourselves awaken in the quiet, in the half-light. That's where Hilma's story will find you. Her life is a bridge between what you see and what you sense. She walked the edge between known and unknown, turning silence into color, longing into light. Every breath you take, you're remembering you're not alone with your questions. Others have walked these winding roads too. They've listened for truth under layers of noise and dared to follow the gentle nudge that says, keep going, even when no one else can hear. Hilma's art, her life, wasn't about showing off or claiming mastery. It was about listening, listening to the inner hush, to quiet guidance, to something bigger than herself. Can you recall a time you've done that? Listened to what only you could hear. You're invited tonight to do the same. Let curiosity be more important than certainty. Let your heart soften. You don't have to be awake for any particular revelation. Just let yourself float. If you've ever closed your eyes and wished you could see deeper, if you've ever wanted to move through your days with more meaning, if you've wondered if there's a language inside you still waiting to be spoken, I promise this night is for you. Hilma af Klint's dream is not a story locked in the past. It's not paint drying on a distant wall or a book gathering dust on the shelf. It's the quiet pulse within you when the world goes quiet, when you sense, with deep certainty, that there is so much more. Just beneath the surface of your everyday breath, something timeless is waiting to be seen. Tonight, we enter this dream together. We cross the threshold. We let go of needing to make sense, to name, to define. We rest in presence. We let the story weave itself through our dreams so we might awaken a little changed. You're safe here. You're welcome here. Now close your eyes and let's begin. There are stories that change your mind and stories that change your breath. This one may change how you walk through the world. Tonight on The Modern Mystic, we enter the quiet brilliance of Hilma af Klint's dream art and the divine, not as a figure in history, but as a mirror to something sacred inside you. If you've ever longed for peace, for clarity, for purpose, their story may become your own. Have you ever felt a sense of being out of place, like the rhythm around you was one note, but your heart drummed something different, quiet and persistent underneath? Maybe there was a morning where the sun came in softly through your window, and you wondered, just for a second, if there was more to all of this than the chores and calendars, emails and errands. That's exactly what Hilma af Klint's dream art and the divine once felt too. You're not here as a bystander. You're here as a witness to your own hidden brilliance, listening for something familiar inside this story. Let's find it together without trying to solve or explain anything away, just letting the gentle footsteps of Hilma's life guide us through the night. So get comfortable. Let yourself breathe softer, ribs opening a little more with each inhale. Picture the quiet glow of candlelight against an old studio wall. Thin air, stacked canvases, the silent pulse of color waiting patiently to become real. Feel how every part of you is invited, that restless mind, the places you hurt, the secret places where hope still hides. Maybe you're here because you feel called by the unknown. Maybe you want to remember the part of you that still believes in beauty, even when the world feels heavy. Or maybe you're just tired, hoping for sleep to land gently just this once. You're in the right place. Together, we're exploring the life of someone who lived in the space between what is seen and unseen, not always sure, but always sincere, always listening for what comes next. Let's step into her world. No rush. Just following the beat of your own breath, feeling the trace warmth of her story start to mingle with yours. Nothing to prove, nothing to fix, only to feel. This night is not about learning, it's about remembering. Remembering how it feels to trust the quiet voice inside. Remembering that your story matters. So, gently as you can, put aside anything you thought you needed to do tonight. Let the day close, the way a book folds after a good last sentence. Let Hilma's dream become the ground you rest on, and maybe the echo that shapes your sleep. You're not alone here. You're part of the story now. Let the journey begin soon, letting the silence between words be part of the magic. Because in this breath and the next, may you feel closer to the place where art and the divine and everything sacred in you begin to meet. There are stories that change your mind and stories that change your breath. This one may change how you walk through the world. Somewhere between waking and dreaming, there's a quiet place where you can listen in new ways. Tonight on The Modern Mystic, we enter the quiet brilliance of Hilma af Klint's dream art and the divine, not as a figure in history, but as a mirror to something sacred inside you. You might not know her name, or you might know it only as a whisper in the art world's halls, but that doesn't really matter. Because this story isn't just Hilma's. It might end up being yours. If you've ever longed for peace, for clarity, for purpose, her story may become your own. There's nothing to prove tonight. Just a gentle invitation to remember something soft and powerful within you as sleep slowly finds you. Have you ever felt the world was a little too noisy, the city lights too bright, the pace just a little out of rhythm with how your heart wants to beat? Maybe there was a time when you wished things could slow down, just long enough for you to hear what's underneath all that noise. That's exactly what Hilma af Klint's dream art and the divine once felt too. an ache somewhere between her ribs and her spirit, a sense that life should hold something unseen, some deeper pattern moving in the quiet spaces. She didn't need anyone to tell her to be still. She had lived in stillness for as long as she could remember. While the world hurried outside, inside, a different world was growing, slow, gentle, attentive. Maybe tonight you'll feel a shape like that inside you, a gentle tug to stay, to allow curiosity and longing to turn into something luminous. Rest here. Let the world's heaviness soften into the mattress beneath you. Unclench your jaw. Let your breath fall a little deeper.